Walking through the crowded refugee camps of southern Bangladesh, you'll see signs of chronic malnutrition everywhere. Rohingya children with hollow eyes, thin limbs, and large heads. Doctors say a child under 3 needs at least 1,400 calories a day to grow. But in the makeshift settlements of Cox's Bazar, Rohingya families have been surviving on less than half of that. Aid organizations have been warning us for years that nearly 1 million Rohingya are at risk of hunger and disease. But global attention is fading, and international funding is shrinking. These refugees fled genocide and persecution in Myanmar, but now they face a slower kind of suffering: the daily lack of food and health care. I am Ibrahim, and you're listening to Aloud from TRT Global Podcasts. This podcast brings you TRT Global articles made for audio. In this episode, we have adapted the article "The Rohingya Are Being Slowly Abandoned by the World" by Shamim Chowdhury, first published on April 8, 2025. The Rohingya have remained in a state of limbo in Bangladesh for years. On August 25, 2017, the Myanmar military began a sweeping campaign of massacres, rape, and arson in northern Rakhine state. The United Nations described this as a textbook example of ethnic cleansing by Myanmar's military. More than 730,000 Rohingya fled to camps in Bangladesh, while about 600,000 remain under oppressive rule in Myanmar. 7 years on, no one has been held accountable for the crimes against humanity and acts of genocide committed against the Rohingya population. Every year, thousands gather at rallies to mark Rohingya Genocide Remembrance Day and call for justice and protection of their rights. But this didn't begin in 2017. Since the early 1990s, Rohingya have faced repeated persecution in Myanmar and fled to Bangladesh. Today, more than 1 million Rohingya refugees live in 33 camps across southern Bangladesh. The city of Cox's Bazar in particular is home to one of the world's largest refugee populations. Across the camps, around 320,000 children are suffering from malnutrition. And every year, that number grows by 22,000, as new babies are born into a world that cannot feed them. For years, the World Food Programme, or WFP, provided Rohingya with $12.50 per person per month, just 41 cents a day. To put that in perspective, in Bangladesh, a kilo of rice costs about 49 cents. A kilo of lentils costs around 32 cents. And a whole chicken is about $2.46. So if you're a family of 4, surviving on just $1.56 a day total, it's painfully clear how difficult it is to afford even the basics. And it gets worse. In early March, the WFP warned that without more funding, it might have to cut rations by half to just $6 a month. A few months later, they adjusted the amount to $12 a month, or 39 cents a day. Still far too little. The WFP says the drop in food aid isn't because of a specific decision, but rather a broader decline in donations from around the world, most notably the United States. Until recently, the US has been the top donor for Rohingya refugee aid. America provided the WFP with $4.4 billion of its $9.7 billion budget in 2024, but aid funding has been slashed under President Donald Trump. And as formal work is not allowed in the camps, a Rohingya man named Jakir tells Reuters he is depending on aid to support his family.
We want their support back. How will we survive? How will our kids get an education? Please find us a way.
The funding cuts have forced clinics run by the International Rescue Committee to limit services to emergencies only, and close outreach programs that once supported women and children most at risk. This has also hit vital services like reproductive health care, support for survivors of gender-based violence, and maternal care. In March 2025, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh.
And in this visit, I already heard 2 clear messages.
He called on the international community to re-establish peace in Myanmar so the Rohingyas may return. The European Commission recently pledged $79.4 million to support the Rohingya, but the scale of the need in the camps is enormous. The WFP says it needs at least $96 million just to restore full food rations for the rest of 2025. The broader impact of this funding collapse is deeply troubling as the consequences are generational. Malnourished children risk stunted growth, weakened immune systems, and permanent developmental delays. Experts also warn that growing hunger and poverty are pushing some people towards dangerous paths, such as joining gangs or turning into illegal activities. Others point to a rise in domestic violence, and an alarming increase in human trafficking within the camps. Pressure is building as over 1 million stateless people remain packed into tight, overcrowded spaces and unable to work, move freely, or become part of the Bangladeshi society. And as more Rohingya continue to arrive, fleeing fresh violence in Myanmar, the situation becomes more dire. The Rohingya have already endured horrors most of us can't imagine. Murder, torture, rape, the burning of their homes, and the loss of a nation to call their own. When the world first saw their suffering, there was an outpouring of sympathy. But the Rohingya are still here, still suffering. Let the world not look away. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay informed. This Aloud episode was an adaptation of an article on TRT World.